What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we have some Destiny 2 news in the form of This Week at Bungie. And we get a pretty interesting one today. They speak about the mid-April patch, and we're going to get an update next week with a few items that are pretty useful. And then Bungie speak about dungeons and raids, and so they touch on Master Vow of the Disciple, but also future raid rotations, and some of the content that we're going to see in Season 17. On top of that, they speak about the rewards, and there are a few other things which we'll round up in the video, guys, so as always, I hope you find this one useful, and if you do, be sure to get subscribed to the channel, but now, let's get into it. Let's start out by saying we're excited to show off even more changes coming to Destiny 2 while we continue working on what the future means for our favourite spacefaring heroes. In the next few weeks, we'll be diving through some weapon sandbox changes and other topics of interest. And one of the changes that we're ready to talk about now, however, is a new rotator system for some of the more challenging activities in-game, particularly raids and dungeons. But before diving into what's next for activities, we want to shout out that players can finally take Rug's kicks to the face at an even higher ferocity because Master Vow of the Disciple is dropping next week. For details regarding the ramped up difficulty, Guardians should know that the power level is 1580 with a seasonal cap at plus 30. And for those challenge hardy players, completing challenges at Master difficulty will offer progress towards the raid seal, and each encounter completed also has the chance to drop an adept version of a given weapon for the raid. It's a neat way to up the ante when taking on more challenging aspects of Destiny 2, and the Master Mode will drop next week on April 19th. And so it'll be interesting to jump in and see how those rewards work, as well as precisely how difficult that's going to feel on Master difficulty. So let us know if you'll be diving in next week. But next they say there's more. As players continue exploring the throne world and uncover the true nature of the Witness's influence, we've heard your desire for reasons to return to previously released raid and dungeon content loud and clear. One way we're freshening up the raid and dungeon experience in D2 is by developing a new rotation of featured content that we'll think you'll like starting in Season 17, and this is designed to make raid and dungeon content a bit more enticing over the course of a season, while also providing more ways to play while jumping into different activities with friends and clanmates. And so they say we're breaking up our new rotator system into seasonal and weekly categories so that players can have a little additional freshness when taking on the weekly hunt for power. So starting with the seasonal rotation, they say each season the newly released raid and dungeon will grant pinnacle rewards for all encounters. As an example, in Season 17, Vow of the Disciple and the upcoming Redacted dungeon, and outside of these, we'll have a raid rotator and a dungeon rotator, each offering a pinnacle reward once completed. And so there'll be the kind of featured new content, but then an additional featured activity in the rotator. And they say for those wondering about the weekly rotation, this particular inclusion will have the chance to feature all raids and dungeons not listed as the seasonal rotation. So if you want to revisit the Vex in the Garden of Salvation, or go toe-to-toe with Riven, it'll be an option. And then they say in terms of what's different for rewards, for the weekly rotation, completing the final encounter of any of the chosen raids or dungeons will award a pinnacle drop from a weekly challenge. And for any raid or dungeon that offers a harder difficulty, such as Master Vault of Glass, that higher difficulty will also be available to select should players be itching for the additional challenge. On top of this, for players that like farming, they say this is built into the new rotator system. All lockouts on encounter rewards for legendary gear are being removed, which means all legendary drops in both raids and dungeons will be 100% farmable if you choose. And so that sounds pretty cool there, on top of the fact that we're getting a lot more of this style of endgame content throughout the course of this year. There'll be that element where they're shining the spotlight on some of those older raids and dungeons, and also having those rewards be farmable will be pretty cool. And so I don't think it's a bad start to a system like this. I'd definitely be curious to see if we could get extra little rewards here and there in the future, but initially that sounds pretty good, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts in the comment section. And moving on, they speak about what's coming next in the form of a patch notes preview, and these are changes that we're going to see on April 19th. So for Wellspring Attack, they fixed an issue that could cause teams to incorrectly wipe during a Master Wellspring when an objective is completed with only a few seconds left on the timer. They also added a failsafe so that carryable objects in both the ritual and boss phases of Wellspring won't spawn out of bounds. For Altar of Reflection, they say they fixed a problem where players couldn't complete the evidence board quest report Altar Reflect due to the activity not showing up correctly. And for Vow of Disciple, they fixed a problem where Rulk would suddenly become shy and no longer transition back to his initial phase properly, and another issue where Caretaker's dynamic health threshold UI would not consistently display for all players. For Trials though, they fixed a problem where players were not receiving the expected rewards on post-flawless wins, and so that will be a bit more farmable now. Then for text chat, virtual keyboard support is now available for console text chat, and improvements have been made to make text chat messages more legible. But for weapon crafting, they've added a consumable item that allows viewing of element counts. This can be acquired through the relic conduit, and it's not a limited item, they can be discarded and reacquired at any time. Could be useful right there, seems like a pretty unusual way to implement it. Let me know what you think. Then for the artifact, players with all 25 artifact mods unlocked can still reset the artifact for no additional glimmer cost, and once all mods are unlocked, resets from that point will be free. So that's pretty cool. Then for abilities, they fixed a problem where Devour would sometimes grant less buff time if multiple targets were killed in quick succession, and they added aim assist targeting to enemy Axiom Bolt's secondary projectile to help players hit bolts that are chasing both themselves and allies. They also say that in the upcoming patch, they'll tackle notable stability issues and crash fixes. Xur's wonky stats for his wares, and Raoul's destination materials for sale will resume rotating at reset. So plenty more updates, and there'll be more patch notes dropping next week on the 19th. Here though we have some Game Pass information, so as of April 11th, they say D2 and its expansions, Forsaken, Shadowkeep, and Beyond Light have left the Game Pass for PC, and players who are accessing the Destiny 2 DLCs through the Game Pass will need to purchase them to maintain access. On top of this, as of April 14th, changes to in-game text chat have been implemented, effectively adjusting a recent change that caused players to run into too many messages alerts, and those were happening earlier than expected, so those have been corrected. There's also a section in there that confirms the update next week will drop at the weekly reset time, that'll be the normal time, with a small 15-minute downtime before that starts. But finally here, in terms of the Mechs vs Monsters armor poll that Bungie put out last week, they say the results are in, and spoiler alert, Team Mech won by a hair, taking up 52% of the votes, with 48% of the votes going to Team Monster, and so we will be getting the Mech armor for the Festival of the Lost this year. I know based on my last TWAB video, a lot of you guys were voting for Mech, so let us know if you're happy about that down in the comment section. And then once again say that they'll be giving us more details about upcoming season changes, sandbox stuff, and plenty more over the coming weeks. So let us know once again your thoughts on the TWAB section down in the comments. The final thing worth mentioning right here is that yesterday Bungie posted a pretty cool hidden dossier, which contains a whole bunch of information, including letters and reports between Ikora Rey, members of the Hidden, and various other characters in the Destiny universe. It's actually a really long document though right here, which is essentially a lore piece, and there are conversations with Mithrax, and some of that speaks about the Traveler and its relationship with the Fallen, but there's also psychometer field tests and information about some of the data acquired from the Hive, plus conversations from the Vanguard, and a whole bunch of other stuff, so especially if you're into Destiny lore. And you fancy a bit of reading, there's quite a lot of stuff to check out. So let us know down in the comment section any interesting things you find in there, and it'll also be linked in the description box below alongside the TWAB. But for today guys, that is everything we have to round up in the video. So give us any thoughts about the raid stuff and some of those changes in Season 17. As always, I'll be keeping you posted on all of that information and all of the news that we'll be getting in the run up to the new season as well. So definitely get subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss out on any content. And if you've enjoyed the video today, a like rating down below really does help us out as well. But otherwise, for now, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.